Welcome to this deep dive episode of Line of Blood. I'm Jana Marcus, and today I am joined by Maria, the psychic, as she is known in our story. She has been instrumental in bringing this case to fruition and really took the investigation into a whole new vein. So join us for conversation as we remember some of the highlights of our investigation. Welcome, Maria, to our deep dive of your participation in the investigation, which was incredible and just, as I said, took our investigation into a whole new vein and really helped bring it to fruition in a way that would not have been possible otherwise. Um,
Yay.
it's great to see you.
Good to see
And
you.
I would love to start by, share with our audience, just a little bit about your background and how you work.
So I'm a medium and a healer. So a lot of the work that I do does work with untimely death. Sometimes it's a murder. Sometimes it's suicide. Sometimes it's an accident. Sometimes so it's heavy. It's heavy lifting. Um, I've had the ability since I was a kid. I've always had it. I've always been able to see. I've always been able to connect. Um, um, it's a blessing and it's exhausting.
Mm,
So I get a lot of phone calls with people that have sticky situations that they need help with, that they really don't feel that they can communicate with anybody else because sometimes trauma um, has a way of weaving itself into that person and they carry it. And I think that they search for answers, but they also search for relief and healing. And did I do something wrong? Was I not there? I wish I would have been. Guilt. There's a lot of that. And I have a way to heal it, make it softer, make it less painful.
mm.
And there's no time limit on it. So there's no rush. And I think that's what people truly need because a lot of times it's misunderstood and it's like it's over, it's over, it's over. We've got justice or don't worry, we'll find it out, but you can't live like this. And it's like, there's no time limit, right? So we have to work gently with these things, especially when you need to get answers. Sometimes the answers don't come clear.
This is true. This is true. Tell us a bit about working as an empath and how it is that you, because as you said, it can be painful. I mean, the work that you go through an incredible amount of physical pain to get answers. And tell us a little bit about being an empath and what that means.
When I It's interesting because when I sit down with people and their people decide to come through, sometimes it's not pretty. You know what I mean? It's not that they're scary or I see their injuries or whatever. I feel it.
Mhm.
So when I sit down with a person and their loved one comes through, I can smell illness or I can feel it. Um, Pain in so many different ways. So when I'm talking to them, I'll get a headache or I'll get a pain in my head or I'll get pains in my chest or I can't breathe and I'll cough or I'll taste copper or I'll smell copper or I'll smell whatever treatment. It's a sensitivity that's insane and it sucks. To be honest with you, it sucks because it hurts. It hurts. It hurts. So, but once I connect to that person, then I can download all the information and I can share whatever it is I need to share once they come through. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to separate that. I was never shown that. I've always felt that pain. I've dropped, I've passed out, I've dislocated my jaw, I've been thrown to the ground. I mean, I've been through the ringer.
You've seen it all.
I just, it's weird because now when I feel it coming on, at least I have the wherewithal to say, back up.
Mm,
Let's take this a little slower because I can't. You know what I mean? I can't receive. I can't hear you when I'm hurting.
mhm.
So,
It's interesting. One of the things that I found so interesting when we were working together and having all those sessions was how you would talk back to the spirits. I thought it was hysterical. But I mean, you do not hold back. You're like, get off me. You're a pain. Go over here. Like, it was funny to me how you
uh,
would talk to them.
yeah, you know what's even funnier is when you're walking down the street and you're doing it because people think you've lost your damn mind. It's it's always there. It's always on you. You know what I mean? There are there's ton of amazing, gifted seers and psychics and mediums out there that know how to separate that. And I just have never learned it. So the only way I can do it is just by yelling. Just knock it off. We're not doing this.
So how do you handle that on a day-to-day basis for your own sanity?
Take time off. I have to give myself self-care. When I'm home, when I'm here, when I'm in my space, and I'm working, they have a certain amount of room to move about. They're not allowed to go into other places. When I'm out and I feel it coming on, I can pretty much say, okay, I'm taking a hit, or I can look around and see who it is. You know what I mean? So if I'm sitting out and having dinner and somebody walks in and they're unwell or they have their people with them and I get the message, I will never, ever, ever approach a stranger and say, hey, by the way, you got a dead person walking with you and they're, you know, but I can sit there. Yeah, I can sit there and go, oh, shit, somebody's here. It's not mine. It's not mine. They have to go with their loved one. They have to go be with that person. It's not for me. And I have to say it out loud. I have to basically say it's not for me, baby. This isn't the right time.
Do they listen to you?
Sometimes. Sometimes. Sometimes it's weird. The person that has the energy following them, they'll get it and they'll come over and they'll start talking to me, just small bits and
Hmm.
pieces. You know what I mean? Like a long, long time ago, I was sitting in a bar. I was watching a football game, and this girl walked in. Her people walked in. I was like, oh no, 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 not right now. So I was sitting there, and she actually sat down with me, and she just made small comments, and we got to talking, and then I was able to gently in a bar tell her what I was seeing.
It must shock them to death, right?
You know what? Believe it or not, she's been with me for a long time. Like I've known her for years because of that one moment. And then,
Oh,
of
you
course,
mean it
there
was a spirit who came in and sat down at the bar?
no, it was a live person that sat down and her people came in.
Oh, but so now you've known that woman for a long time?
I've been doing readings for her for what, 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, but I bet it must be hard to just turn that stuff off. And
The only time it turned off, this is insane, was when I had COVID.
interesting.
I got COVID. I was very, very sick. I was sick for about 3.5. I almost missed my son's wedding. And when I started to heal, like like get back into the living world because I was sick. I was like, "Oh shit, it's quiet."
Wow.
And I mean, "Oh shit, it's quiet." I had nothing.
Did it freak you out a little bit?
Yeah, it did because I was like, I don't know what this is. So, I didn't hear or see or feel anything for seriously about a month and a half.
Wow.
But when it came back with a vengeance.
They were like, where were you?
I think I don't think I was traveling. I think I was
No, I
here.
mean they were probably saying, where were you? We
Oh,
couldn't
girl, it
locate you.
was like, It was like wah wah wah. It was crazy, but I mean, it was weird because when I flew home for my son's wedding, I still wasn't 110%, and it was quiet and it was bizarre. And I got to enjoy the wedding, which was nice. Um, and then when I came back, it started to kind of trickle in, but I didn't have it. There was nothing there. But when it hit, I was like, oh shit, it's here. It's back. And it came back really, it was almost like I did a purge.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I did a cleansing of sort because
Hmm.
when it came back very clear, very clear. So it was interesting.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. That was the only time it was quiet.
So thinking about Line of Blood and our investigation, what are some of the moments that stand out to you the most for you as a medium? What really stood out for you about this case?
Well, first of all, when I walked into your house and I walked upstairs and I got to see, I was sitting in the portal, right? That was cool. It was like, oh, this is so neat. It was amazing. But then it became so personal. You know what I mean? I felt like I was attached. You know what I mean? It wasn't just collecting information, but I felt like I feel shit. Hold on a second. When I work on serious stuff, I get attached. You know what I mean? I get attached to the person that is unwell. I get attached to the person that died. I get attached to the person that needs a voice. I get attached. And yeah, I can let it go after I've done the work, but this I felt like I was part of the family in a weird way. You know what I mean? I felt like I was like the distant, not blood relative, but everybody. You know what I mean? So I became very attached to you, to Dad, to Gamma Ray. I became very attached to it, and it felt and it became very personal to me. And there were moments where I was emotional. You know what I mean? It was like because I wanted to do right. I wanted to do right by everybody.
Mm.
And I wanted to make sure that the puzzle pieces fit. So it became very personal and it meant a lot to work on it. And it just was a lot. It was just very amazing. And being able to go and I've never traveled like that through New York. So being able to see things back then in layers was fascinating and it was scary and some of it sucked.
Some of it did suck for you physically. And for our listeners and viewers, we're talking about Lincoln Place, which was
Oh.
Uncle Abe's headquarters in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
And you never even needed to go into the building. Well, first of all, Maria saw what this entire building looked like, the empty lot next door, before any of us had ever seen the location. You didn't have the address, you didn't have anything. That was incredible. But you couldn't even go inside the building without getting hit like right away.
It
And
was it was it was ugly. I mean, that was ugly. Seeing it before going in it and seeing it was ugly. It was just ugly.
now, so to explain to people who are watching, at Lincoln Place was where Maria had seen the beating of Uncle Frankie. And you were physically attacked on our second trip to Lincoln Place by a shadow figure in that room where Uncle Frankie had been beaten. And that was intense. I mean, that was crazy. And I remember you pulling up your t-shirt. We could
Sure. Yep.
see the red marks on your rib cage where you were just getting hit over and over again. That was
Uh,
crazy.
again, like I said, just traveling through all of that, feeling it and seeing it and breathing it and seeing the multi layers of it, seeing what it looks like now, and then being able to, it's just like looking at a schematic, right? You pull back the tissue paper and it's like this is the bones, and then we're going to start adding layers to it. And
Hmm.
that's the way it was, especially when we went to, and again, bear with me because I don't remember. I see it, but I don't remember. But when we were by water, by
When
the
we went,
water and the
when,
gate and yeah, it's like you see it now, but I can see the bones.
mhm. Yeah, there were some amazing things that you had described to us that then we found, like the ancient gate, which was a layer of Abe's last night at the
Yep,
restaurant. And then we knew someplace near the restaurant was this ancient gate where he spoke to the special prosecutor under stealthy circumstances. But we
yep,
found the gate, and it was exactly as you described it. And we found the location of where he had actually been murdered, which was never talked about in the papers, but it was obvious that his body had been moved and staged.
mm-hmm,
And that was an amazing day where you and Mark the cop, with his knowledge of Brooklyn and your vision of where you saw this happening, collided. And it
yeah,
was my cousin Michael was with us that day, and it was amazing for us to be on
yeah,
the edge of our seat, like watching you describing what you're seeing and Mark figuring it out. Like, yeah, it was incredible. That was an amazing afternoon to see that come together. And you and I had gotten these messages just a week before we left for New York, which was Atlantic and Pennsylvania. We
yep.
had no idea what it meant. I thought an ocean in a state. What the hell is that? But it was at Atlantic Avenue near Pennsylvania where that location was. It was crazy, Maria. That was
It,
crazy.
but even sitting in my tower and doing those channeling sessions, it was Jesus. I mean, meeting everybody, like meeting all these people and having people come through and then having other people come through and they were pissed off and they got angry or they got frustrated or sometimes they would make the tower shake. Sometimes they would make weird things happen. And that's the reason why I love the fact that you recorded all of it, because you can see it and you can hear it, because that happens all the time.
We did hear voices come through the electronics. We were not actually in a session when your house shook, or actually,
No.
I think it was
Yeah. No,
Randall's,
remember, because it was like a bang.
which I didn't hear. So
Oh,
I think it was right before it was, or I don't really remember. But I know
yep.
that there were times that we heard things come through the electronics, and that was astounding to me that the spirits actually use electronics or that they even know how. But I guess it's kind of like a spirit box or something. I don't know.
So we didn't have spirit boxes, right?
Mhm.
We didn't have them. We
'Cause
didn't
this was
have them
10
on our
years ago. This was 10 years
right.
ago. Yeah.
And I actually got a couple of people that watched some of the session, and they even asked me. They sent me a neat text, and they were like, "Did you have a spirit box?" And I started laughing because my phone at that time, I didn't know you could download anything like that because now tech has gotten so huge.
Mm-hmm.
But my phone was so old that my friends used to tell me that, ask me if I still had rotary dial, because my phone was so old, because I didn't want to give it up. It was a great phone. I didn't want to give it up. And I started laughing. I was like, no, it was coming through the computer. It was coming through our session. So we kind of did like spirit box sessions before spirit box sessions were cool.
I know that. I mean, I watched some TV show where they were using all these really interesting new pieces of equipment,
Yeah.
kind of contact spirits and this and that. And 10 years ago, when you and I had our sessions, we didn't have the audio ability to hear it the way we do now. Like when we
Right.
heard it 10 years ago, Eric, the research assistant, and I mean, we had tried to distill the audio and try to hear it. And it was very obvious that there were sentences or words being said, but we couldn't decipher them. But today, there's different software that, I made that little short video on the website
Yep.
where this time I could actually hear some stuff. And some of it is, it's up for question what they're actually saying. Like
Right.
I might be
Absolutely.
hearing one thing or whatever, but the truth is, regardless, there were words being said, there were
Hmm.
sentences, and that's undeniable,
Yeah.
and that was
And
shocking
those are
to
little,
me.
yeah, but those are like little puzzle pieces that add to um, the investigation. It's like a lead. So whatever comes through, whether you're channeling or you're using tech, which I applaud, and like I said, working with you has changed how I do things. Sure, we used to record sessions a long time ago, but it was different. Now we have tech. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Now we have really cool things to help. So even when I do a channeling session for a new case or a missing person or whatever, I'm like, break out the tech. Let's get as much information as we possibly can. I think it's important.
Yeah, there was that time that we captured the blue light going over your head, which is insane. That was spooky movie come to life. But what was but on one of our trips to Brooklyn, we were at Midnight Rose's Candy Store, which was the headquarters of Murder Incorporated. And although Emery, the videographer, was doing video, I took some snapshots of the buildings. And I don't know if I've ever even shown this to you, but it's on the website. When I looked at my photographs when I got back, one frame of Midnight Rose's Candy Store, there are 8 orbs circling the second floor of the building. And they're not in any other frame. The angle of the sun, it is not lens flare because the lens
And you would
flare,
know.
yeah, the lens flare has the shape of the diaphragm of your camera lens, and the light was coming from a different angle. It is literally 8 orbs only circling the second floor. They're not anywhere else. And the second floor was the headquarters. I even showed the picture to Catherine Ramsland, and I asked her what she thought, and she's like, "Oh, this is like for real." So it's crazy. It's
I
on the website. You can see it.
I'm gonna, yeah.
I even reversed it and put in some Photoshop things to try to enhance it. And yeah, they're right at the window. It's crazy.
Uh-huh.
Those are
Uh-huh.
probably the Murder Inc. guys.
Yeah, no kidding, right? But that's just it. It's like I, I know people dismiss a lot of things, right? You're going to have people out there that are going to dismiss, but that you can't. You
Well,
know what I
that's
mean?
the thing.
There's certain things, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, you can say that, but I'm finding it hard to believe that a moth or 8 moths or 8 bubbles or 8 specks of dust have decided to congregate in one section. You know what I mean?
And
Again, like I
nowhere else
said,
in the picture. Yeah.
right. But the other thing is too, you would know if it was bullshit because you are a photographer.
And it couldn't have been
You,
moist. Yeah. And it couldn't have been moisture on the lens because it was 95 degrees that day. It was boiling hot.
yep, yep,
Here's the thing. People will always be believing whatever they believe. I was a skeptical believer,
sure,
to be honest, until I started working with you.
absolutely.
But when things happen to you, when you experience them, anyone, it changes your thought and your perception 100%. And so until someone who's a skeptic has that moment themselves, you know, they won't know.
Yeah. That's why when I work, if I'm doing a gathering, if I'm doing a conference, whatever the case may be, I want people to bring tech. I want people to record. I want people to have an experience, but I also want them to understand I don't understand it. I'm even a skeptic. Trust me. There are times where I'm like, oh, damn, that, oh, I, I got that. You know what I mean? I got that. So I don't take it for granted. And I don't say that I'm the end all be all because girl, I'm a sloppy mess when I do this stuff. I am not a normal medium. I'm very raw.
Well, who's to say what's normal, right? I mean, look, everybody works differently, right? All
Absolutely.
I know is this, is that for 20 plus years, it took me to find basic information about the murder of Uncle Abe. And you walked in my house and you snapped it off, boom, 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 on a case that could not be found online. That, there's no way, you had purposely said to me, don't tell me anything, but you knew facts about this case immediately that had taken me decades to find. And as we progressed in our investigation, one of the things that was so important to me was that you were unable to uncover Uncle Frankie's story, and we knew nothing about Uncle Frankie. He had disappeared. There was no death certificate. There was nothing, and you had been so accurate about everything about Uncle Abe that it, by the time we got to uncovering Frankie's story, I was sure that what you were seeing was accurate. And there was even some moments, like you had said, Goldstein and Fishtown. And Goldstein was one of Frankie's aliases. And, you wouldn't have known that. I mean, it was just fascinating stuff that came through that really
It's
helped bring those cases to fruition.
because I gave them a voice. I gave them the voice. It wasn't me, it was them. They just used my machine, my vessel to give you those bits and pieces. That's where the blessing comes in.
Mm.
It's not me, it's not Maria, it's them. It's the people. It's the family. It's, hey, I've got a story to tell. You know, I I want to be found. I want you to know what happened. I'm not a
Mhm.
bad person. And we gave them that voice. And that's the most important. That is the most important.
Well, I can never thank you enough for everything that you did, and that my dad was helping me with me through all of this, really sort of helped me heal from his passing as well. So I
That's
just
why it was a blessing.
it was a blessing. It was a mitzvah. And I hope that we have something else. You learned a lot of Yiddish during this too. Having to deal with all those Yiddish accents or all those heavy
Uh-huh.
Jewish accents.
Oh
But
my God. I was like, I'm learning a whole new language. It was
yeah,
awesome.
well, so there were all these different characters. So there was the family, but then there
Hmm.
was all the other like mobsters and racketeers who wanted to have a voice because they felt like they had been done wrong. And then there was all the angry cops. So there was a lot of company.
There was some, yeah, it was dirty. There
There
was a
was a
lot of
lot.
dirt. There was a lot of dirt. It was a movie is what it was. You know what I mean? It was just there were so many
Character.
um there was so many twists and turns, but the fact that there was dirt, you know what I mean? It wasn't pretty. It wasn't romantic. It was, hey, there are people out there walking around that are supposed to be for righteousness, and because they don't like this or they didn't get a cut or whatever the case is, they were the mobsters. You know what I mean? It wasn't even the mobsters. It was so.
Well, the DA and the police were pretty nefarious, absolutely. And I think it's interesting that there are spirits over there who are angry and still
Hmm.
holding on to all the same baloney that
Hmm.
they had here,
Yeah,
which is why those angry cops were beating you up, at Lincoln Place. When did they let go of that stuff, or did they just stay trapped forever?
I think they stay in a perpetual purgatory. You know what I mean? It's dealing with death as much as one does when you're in this line of work or when you're doing the healing work of it all, there are a lot of people out there that are just downright angry and they get stuck in this weird thing. Do they come back and maybe try to atone? I can't answer that. Maybe. I don't know. But I have worked on cases, or I've walked into properties where there's been horrific murder, or where places where people, murderers have stayed, and it's still there. That ick,
Mm.
that yucky, harsh, vile energy is still there. I hate to use the word evil because sometimes evil goes into a whole different realm, but it's gnarly. It's not good energy. And when that stuff, and some of it can be residual, where we've talked about this, where am I seeing the real thing or am I seeing an imprint?
Mm.
And sometimes there is an imprint, and I can tell the difference between an imprint and I can tell the difference between an actual physical manifestation of that energy.
Mm.
So, so yeah, I mean, I think the cops, or some of the ones that were a little harsh, um, they're still living it. They're still, and they probably still do, and they probably cause bad energy and fights and arguments and things like that in those houses. And I've seen that. I've seen that in people's homes where people are like, "What is going on? My husband and I are our best friends when we're not in the house, but when we get in the house, we just fight." And it's like, "Well, you probably need a clearing." And that's when we start doing research on the property. It's like, "Well, what's happened here?"
One last thing I want to ask you about is, Lincoln Place. Lincoln Place was the location of the supposed paperwork around the dumbwaiter that we were never able to get to. And, as a post investigation, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that, because I really thought on our last trip to Lincoln Place, where you were not with us, you only joined us on video to navigate, and then everything got cut off. Um, that there was actually two dumbwaiters. There was dumbwaiter A for the front of the building, which is where
Right.
the only one that we thought existed until our third trip. And then there was dumbwaiter B, which was behind sheetrock, which was probably for the back of the building. And so my conclusion, when we weren't able to find anything, was that maybe it was actually dumbwaiter B, because that would have corresponded with what would have been their headquarters on the fourth floor in apartment D.
Hmm.
And I'm just wondering if you have any post-investigation thoughts or change of heart about that documentation. Like maybe it lived there once, but it's not there anymore. Or do you still think it's there, but just we weren't able to get to it?
I have two post thoughts. My first post thought is we're not done yet.
Uh-oh.
How that manifests, I know not. That I can't see, but I can tell you I feel like we're not done yet. And I think it's because of when you dropped 10, episode 10, I was like, nah. But um I still do I still feel it's there? Yes. Do I still feel it's whole? Maybe not, because little critters and whatnot have probably, but I still feel like there is something that I gotta watch my mouth. That I'm telling you, that goddamn satchel.
The
There's a
money
piece of
grip, the money
freaking
grip,
leather.
the money grip.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, there's a piece of leather that is that holds something. I still see it in. It's still so burned in my head. It's still something is there, and it drives me crazy because I feel it. I feel it. I can taste it. It's something is still there.
Mm.
I feel like in a moment in time down the road, I think that's something is going to come up.
We're gonna have
I
to keep
feel
our
it.
eye on if they ever demolish that building, and then we can go in there.
I'm not even I it's not even there. I'm talking I feel like something is going to present itself. I feel like something is going to present itself. And I feel like it's going to be more so Frankie.
Hmm, interesting. All right. Well, I will keep my eyes peeled. So, wrap up thoughts. I'm just so happy that I got to work with you and get to know you on this case. We discovered the most amazing things, and you were a blessing to have with us. And I hope there's something for us to work on together in the future.
Absolutely. And it was a blessing for me. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, but I also want to say, most importantly, thank you for the trust. I
Absolutely.
mean, I walked into your family and I was trusted with a lot of stuff. So I appreciate you beyond.
I appreciate you. I love you. If people want to find Maria, how would you like people to reach out to you?
On Instagram, I am the Tipsy Witchy, but you can always find me, but obviously find me through Line of Blood. It's the best way to do it.
We'll have contact information for you on the website.
Great.
All right. Well, again, Maria, thank you for your time and for chatting with
Absolutely.
us. And it's so hard to believe it's been 10 years
I
since we
know.
were, since we were on the ground in Brooklyn. I don't know where
I
the
know.
time goes,
Flew. It flew. So
but
I'll see you soon.
thank you. And I hope that we might have something fun to work on in the future.
Absolutely, my dear. All right. You be well.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today for our special deep dive episode. If you want to see behind the scenes videos of us on the ground in Brooklyn, if you want to see documentation, we have tons of stuff on our website at lineofblood-podcast.com. And check out episode 11. It just dropped. I go and do a deep dive on the mysterious death of Kid Twist Relis, one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in mob history. I have a whole new theory on the murder, and I'm going to bring it all back around to our story in season one. It's fascinating. If you want to know how you can support this podcast, tell your friends. Spread the word. We would love that. And don't forget to subscribe because you're going to want to know when season two drops because it is going to be juicy, folks. It is all about the mysterious life of Grandma Ray. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, check out the end of episode 10. You are not going to want to miss this. So until then, this is Jana Marcus signing off. Stay curious, stay investigative, and we will see you in season two. This is a wrap. Bye.